Good afternoon. Welcome to the March 9 meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission. I'd like to welcome you to our meeting. If you intend to speak to us today, I'd ask that you grab a set of the instructions for our meeting that are outside on the front desk. If you would like to speak, I'd ask that you also fill out one of our sign-up sheets, deliver it down here to the front so we can make sure we recognize you when the matter that you wish to speak to us on comes up for hearing. We hopefully will be able to move through the agenda in nice, consistent paced fashion. You can assist us with that if you're addressing us today by keeping your remarks brief, direct, and to the point. If somebody else has raised your point, please don't raise it again, and that'll help us all get through the meeting. So, that being said, Commissioners, minutes of the last meeting. Second? Motion is second to receive the minutes of the, what was that, February 23rd meeting?
Is enough here to do it?
We're just receiving. We're not approving, just receiving. Yeah, we got 5. Okay. Rocky start, but we'll overcome it. Okay, next, continuance requests.
Have 4 uncontested requests today. Item 23, PUD 1628, defer to March 23rd. Item 24, PUD 1636, defer to March 23rd. And item 25, SPUD 941 and 26, PC 10486 have been withdrawn.
Is there anybody here to speak to us on any of the matters, the uncontested request for continuance?
Move approval of the uncontested request.
Motion is second to approve the uncontested request. Cast your votes. Those are approved. New request for continuance.
I have 1 new request for continuance. Item 21, PUD 1626, request to be deferred indefinitely.
Anybody here to speak to us on this matter? By the way, this is the Oakdale Baptist Church. Okay, so usually we get a fairly representative crowd, so the request is to defer that item indefinitely. Motion and a second. Cast your votes. That item is deferred. Public hearings.
First item for public hearing is the consent docket. It's item 1, specific plan related to PUD 1577. Item 2 is ABC 876 for an ABC 2 at 12332 Northwest 10th Street. Item 3, 6876, the final plat of Crown at Lone Oak Road. And item 4, C6877, final plat of Mustang Valley Villas, Section 1.
Anybody here to speak to us today on the consent docket as read?
Second.
Motion is second to approve the consent docket as read. Cast your votes. That item, those are approved.
First item for public hearing is item 5, C6863, final plat of Gentry Crossing.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is an item that was on for hearing 2 weeks ago, and there was quite a bit of discussion as to the impact of the comprehensive plan as it relates to this plat. We've had several productive meetings with the planning department as well as legal staff. It is our belief that when you have a plat such as this that conforms to the zoning and there's a direct conflict between the zoning and the comprehensive plan, the zoning prevails. As such, the plat that we have conforms 100% to the zoning, and we would ask for your approval. We do agree with the technical evaluations, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, there's nobody signed up to speak to us on item 5, and we discussed this at the last meeting regarding the legal matters there.
And I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I wasn't privy to the back and forth. But just to, Dan, clarify, is this right?
When there is direct conflict between the zoning and the comprehensive plan, the zoning controls.
Even if the application for zoning came in and it's a brand-new application to rezone a property, and that rezoning is totally in conflict with the comprehensive plan, but it was approved by council.
Approved by council, then it
Okay.
takes...
Now, my larger question is the comprehensive plan then, I think I read something that you wrote, it's advisory only,
It's a guide, yes.
and so it can be overturned by council at any kind, at any
Yes.
time?
Yes.
That's pretty frustrating, considering 2 or 3 years of work that we went through, and that the staff is going to have to go through to do recommendations for rules, regulations, and ordinances to implement the plan, and if it can be just undone. I thought I read the statute differently than that, about the comprehensive plan and what its legal effect was. But apparently, it's advisory only, right?
Right.
Okay.
Move for adoption.
Motion and a second to approve item number 5. Cast your votes.
Thank you.
Item is approved.
Item 6 is a deed approval 24853, located at 14300 Mezzaluna Avenue.
Mr. Chairman, Commission, Blaine Nice, 100 North Broadway, Oklahoma City, for the applicant. This is related to, you previously considered a special use permit for Lifetime Fitness. This is for the lots out at the Quail Springs Mall. What they've done is taken the old Macy's lot, and it wasn't large enough for the new use, so they're adding some property to this, and we had to do a lot split and get deed approval. Theoretically, this could have been approved administratively, but there was an issue with public access. There's a ring road that is on the CUP is identified as a fire lane. Staff believed that required Planning Commission approval to satisfy the development regulations. We ask that you approve it.
Commissioners, there's a variance that we need to approve to TE1 if we're moving forward with this. Nobody signed up.
I'll move to approve TE1.
Variance? The variance to TE1?
Yeah.
Motion and a second to approve the variance to TE1. Cast your votes.
And I'll move the application.
Motion to approve the application. Cast your votes. Thank you. You're approved.
Thank you, sir.
Item 7, PC 10491, application to rezone 3000 East Britton Road.
Is the applicant present on item 7?
Afternoon, Frank McClendon. Just want to get this piece of property rezoned from our single family to office, O2.
So your address is, you're the applicant and you live at
Yes, sir.
1723 West Britton?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now tell us, give me just, what do you want to do here?
Well, it's zone R1, single family right now, and we want to put 3 office buildings on this piece of property.
Okay. Commissioners? Any questions for Mr. McClendon? Nobody's signed up. Okay, motion and a second to approve item 7. Cast your votes. That item is approved. Thank you.
Item 8 is C6878, the associated plat of Britton Road Office Park.
Mr. McClendon?
Yep, same thing. Final plat, putting three office lots on this 2.5 acres.
Did you note the corrections that were cited in the staff report about kind of got quite a few there, so,
Right-of-ways and whatnot, yes, sir, I did.
yeah, okay. You agree with all the technical evaluations?
I do.
In the staff report?
Yes, sir.
All right. Commissioner, again, nobody signed up for this one.
I'm sorry, I missed, did you see the staff reports corrections? Did you note those?
Yes, sir, I view those.
Okay. Move for adoption.
Motion is second to approve item 8. Cast your votes. That item is approved.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Have a good.
Item 9, C-6872, final plat of Rockwell Park, Section 2, located north of 150th and west of Rockwell.
Good afternoon. Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll, representing the applicant, and this is the second phase of the Rockwell Park addition, and 4 TEs that we're in agreement with, and would ask for your approval.
Commissioners, questions?
Yeah.
Bob?
It's the access to Rockwell Park, Section 1. You know, there's that one
Correct.
entrance off of Rockwell. And then that goes into the area that you're asking for our approval on. And my question is that assuming you don't do anything to the south of Rockwell Park Section 1, say, you know, there's no financing available or the, you know, bottom has dropped out of whatever it is, how many lots then, if you build this out, would be served with that one access road?
All total with Phase 1 and 2, there would be 160 lots. And what we have agreed to do, we've worked with Mike Wilson, the Fire Marshal's office, so that we will provide an emergency access from Rockwell. It will tie in just west of the intersection where you see the boulevard. So with that, it meets the code, and that will stay in place until such time as the future sections develop and the second access onto Rockwell's.
And is that going to be shown on the plan?
It's on the it's being placed on the construction plans.
Okay.
As part of the approval of the project.
Commissioners, nobody signed up on this item.
Move for adoption.
Second, with the provision that does show up on the construction drawings.
Okay, adding the emergency access to the construction plans.
That's fine.
Thanks. All right, thanks, Pat. Motion and second to approve item 9. Cast your votes. That item is approved.
Item 10 is C-6873, preliminary plat of Wilshire Point, located south of Wilshire and east of Classen.
Tim Johnson with Johnson & Associates here on behalf of the applicant. This is a preliminary plat, as J.J. said, that mimics the zoning that's been approved on this site. It's a mixed-use project. And so we agree with all the TEs. We do need a variance to allow the offices tracks to serve off of shared access, which is common in office parks. Other than that, I'd be happy answering any of your questions.
This is a development that we hashed over pretty thoroughly in its rezoning process. So is there anybody signed up to be heard on this matter?
No, but I think we were going to make one change to TE4.
Yeah, I apologize.
About the access question. Issue was changing the word subdivision regulations to PUD.
Okay.
Because they have some different access that's associated with that.
Okay. And so
Nobody signed up, Janice.
I will make a motion to approve the variance to TE number 2.
Motion and second to approve the variance to TE2. Cast your votes. That item is approved.
I'll move to approve the item with the change to TE number 4 to reflect the PUD rather than the subdivision regulation.
Motion and second to approve the application amending TE4 to PUD. Cast your votes.
Thanks.
That's approved. Thanks, Tim.
I'm encouraged that this is moving forward. It was such a strange idea when I first looked at it. I was all in favor of it, but I just wondered whether it would actually happen. This seems to indicate that it will, so I'm pleased.
Item 11 is C-6874, final plat of Talavera Addition, Section 6, located south of Southwest 164th Street and west of Santa Fe.
Again, Tim Johnson here on behalf of the applicant. This is the last phase of Talavera. It butts up to commercially zoned property at the north side. The development has been very successful, and this is a very simple plat. The TE number 3 talks about a variance for access to the west, and we've requested it on plats to the south of this. And The reason we do not want to poke out to the west is because these are already developed 10-acre tracts with residents and farm animals living on them.
So the access to the north, though, is permanent?
Yes.
Okay.
That'll be built as part of this plat.
All right.
I have a question about the meaning behind a requirement to have street connections between quarter sections. I don't know what that means, and I don't know why it's there, and I don't know if it's necessary or not.
Subdivision regulations require a connection across, anytime you're abut a quarter section, there should be a stub street or a connection to the next quarter section.
Okay, why?
Connectivity, vehicular connectivity between neighborhoods.
And I wonder when that was adopted, in 1942 or something like that?
Oh, it's been around for a long time.
I don't, it didn't seem like it would make any difference, who cares? So,
Well, a great example of that is at the south end of this, where we abut the south quarter line.
yeah.
And we stub south, and the development south of us connected. That's the intent.
Tim, that area is north of the proposed area and south of the 164th. Is that any of that in the floodplain?
It's not in the FEMA floodplain. It does have a big drainage area.
Okay, is that set aside for commercial? Is that?
Yes, the property is zoned commercial.
Commissioners, any other questions? Nobody signed up. There's a variance to TE number 3.
I make a motion to approve the variance.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the variance to TE number 3. Cast your votes. That is approved.
Make a motion to approve the applicant.
Motion is second to approve the application. Cast your vote.
Thank you.
It's approved.
Item 12, PUD 1634, application to rezone 6400 Northeast 122nd Street.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Dwight Butler with Anchor Engineering for the applicant. We have reviewed the TEs and do agree in the defining of the area of the flood zone. I'd be more than happy to show that, revise the master development plan to show that. And in doing so, I am shifting the north-south lot line slightly west into lot number 1 so that it would more adequately share the floodplain. And we will actually have that as a tree reserve area.
Okay. So that is in response to TE number 1, right?
Yes, sir.
Or the condition number 1, I should say.
Yes.
All right, so you're going to move the interior, what I would call the inside lot there, back to the west a little bit so they share the floodplain. Is that what I heard?
Yes, sir, and then I'll reserve that. I mean, they'll get to clear the underbrush and stuff out for fire safety, but leave the trees in that area to make everything look good.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Does that allow you to still meet the 2-acre minimum?
Yes, sir. There'll both be at least 3 acres.
Even if you move that?
Yes, sir. I tried to keep it as close to 300 foot of frontage as I could. I'm having to drop the west lot to 260, but in the rezoning, I've allowed for down to 250. So it still meets the PUD, and it comes closer to splitting the flood zone.
Dwight, have you defined what you're going to do about the tree preservation? Is that in the
flood
PUD?
zone? That's what I was just now discussing. Yes, we'll leave the area in the flood zone as a tree preservation. Area outside.
Then it's a twofold issue. One's a floodplain, one is tree preservation.
And there would be one and the same in this case. That is a nice wooded area in the flood zone.
But that explains how you're going to preserve the trees?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, and the outside to the southwest of the property is all Corps of Engineers, which is a preservation.
That. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Move for adoption.
Motion is second to approve item 12. Cast your votes.
Dwight,
Thank you very much.
Before you leave,
Yes, sir.
I may have told you this before, but I want to thank you for the job that you did at 59th and Choctaw Road.
Well, thank you very
I was
much.
very skeptical of how that water could be handled, And I'm telling you, we've had some rains out there. And of course, I know you had a little help because the road was raised a little bit.
Yes, sir.
But you did a fantastic job with that subdivision.
From
Thank you,
pasture to
sir.
paradise. Thank you very much.
Item 13, SPUD 953, application by Justin Owens to rezone 3725 Southwest 24th Street.
Good afternoon. I'm Justin Owens of 3725 Southwest 24th, and just wanting to receive permission to add on to the existing house that's there. And in doing so, I've run into a little bit of difficulties.
A snag, shall we say? That being the garage?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. So the garage you built,
Yeah, 8 years ago.
okay, so it's effectively non-conforming, and you're trying to bring that into
Right.
into compliance, right?
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, nobody's signed up on this.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion is second to approve item 13. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you, sir.
Item 14, SPUD 954, application by Leo and Helen Bernard to rezone 11415 Northwestern Avenue.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Chairman. Dwight Butler with Anchor Engineering for the applicant. And I do agree with the one TE that's on there. I did have a question from Ms. Powers this morning about how the outbuildings, the accessory buildings would look. I didn't have time to get anything printed off, but the client did text me a photo, and I'd be happy to show it to you, Janice, if you have just...
During our conversation this morning, we also agreed that we would add the language limited to a landscape contracting business and associated uses to the use unit administrative and professional office. Thank you. And yes, I had some concerns about the metal buildings, but you know, I think landscape business, that kind of is what it is. This is not an uncommon use in this area. There are a couple of these kinds of businesses up Western, and if nobody else wants to be heard, I'll move approval.
All right, motion is second to approve item 14.
Subject to the addition of that language.
Correct, adding to TE number 2, the use unit.
Administrative and professional office.
Yeah, further limited to a landscape contracting business and associated uses.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Cast your votes. It's approved as conditioned. Thanks, Dwight.
Thank you very much.
Item 15, SPUD 956, application by Sam Gresham to rezone 1629 Northwest 16th Street.
Sam Gresham, 400 Northwest 23rd, here to represent the owner. This is a parcel that's hard into the Plaza District. It's at Blackwelder and 16th, and other than to its east, it's surrounded largely by commercial property. We agree with all the TEs listed in the staff report. We would like to request, the owner asked me, I wrote 5,000 feet for the maximum building size. I did talk to staff. They said I could propose a larger size. And the owner is asking for 10,000 feet, possible, given the fact that if he built a two-story structure with residents on the top, that lot would be better utilized. He's got 2,500 feet on the lot now. Well, he's got 5,000 feet on the lot now, given the two existing buildings. His purpose is to maximize the use.
I'll just say, I feel kind of ambivalent about this. I'm not crazy about the idea of using the existing buildings there, given that they are so different in appearance, one from the other. It's a little hard for me to figure out how that would work. But by the same token, would want a little bit more detail if you were going to tear down what's there and rebuild and build something different.
Of course.
I'd kind of want to see what that looked like and, what building materials we were talking about, and especially if we're going to increase the size by double.
We would agree to a continuance on this item if that's something I could request.
Sure you can.
I mean, at this point, you were looking for more detail. I don't know whether the Urban Design Commission would be is it downtown design or urban design? I don't know who takes care of that. Urban design.
I think that's such a significant change, I think, than what I envisioned at the property. That might be beneficial for me. If that's the proposal that they want to go ahead with, Bob, 10,000 feet versus...
Well, he asked me that. It was an arbitrary number. It wasn't really set based on a design of any sort, but I think it might be better, as Commissioner Powers
Considering
pointed out.
if I add the two together now, it looks like about 3,400.
Oh, on the footage? I can't read that.
I mean,
It's
it
too
looks like
small.
one's about 1,900, one's about 1,600, so maybe, make that about 3,700.
Well, there's another building there that's being removed.
Yeah.
We had a conversation briefly on the phone, and the owner asked me for an increase.
I'm a bit confused because when I first reviewed this, I said, okay, there's two existing buildings. You're going to put something in there. I don't know what the facade is going to look like, but it's going to look like something. And now you come here and you say, no, not 5,000 square feet, 10. Well, that's kind of a larger program with no information.
I understand you.
I'd like to have you come back and with the facade, the site plan and what the front of it's going to look like. Staff said they can't tell. I think the application is a wee bit incomplete. So would you continue this for 2 weeks?
I would request that continuance.
And then bring
yes.
some,
Pictures.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Is 2 weeks
Continue
enough?
for 2 weeks.
2 weeks is fine.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Was that a motion to continue item 15 until March 23rd?
And second.
Cast your votes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Item 16 is PC 10490, application by Management Development Company to rezone 6101 Southwest 44th Street.
Tim Johnson again with Johnson Associates on behalf of the applicants. This is a piece of property surrounded by industrial zoning. It's currently zoned C4. We're requesting a downzoning to I2. And it just better fits the potential user. It matches the property immediate to the west. We're divided by a creek, and it's proposed to do a large warehouse here, similar to what's being built next door. There are no TEs. We'd request your approval.
Commissioners, nobody signed up to speak to us on this item.
I have just a quick comment. This is zone C4, right?
Correct.
Which means that you could do darn near anything.
Yes, sir.
Signage, et cetera, et
Yes, sir.
cetera. And I2, you can do even more et ceteras, right?
I don't know. It's actually a few less.
Huh?
It's a few less.
Well, I just want to point that it's already a picture. This is along Airport Road, Highway 152. It's an appearance corridor.
I can't hear you.
Oh, pardon me. This is on an appearance corridor, but it's C4. I mean, so there is just a.
Staff
I wish
assures
that
me
we
that
could
this
come
is
in here
not
and
an
do
appearance
a
corridor.
PUD or something like that to restrict all the bad stuff you can do with this zoning, but I don't object to it.
I had the same question, but I was informed that this is not an appearance corridor. So
What? Highway 152?
that's what I was told.
Wouldn't that be an appearance corridor?
No, not at this location.
I think most of that's commercial down through there. It's all warehouses and everything else, even on the new part.
It is right off
I go to the
Airport Road.
That's the street I
It's
take.
effectively Airport Road and MacArthur, so
Okay.
I think the use is appropriate. It's surrounded by I-2. Probably good to keep it all that way. Motion?
Yes.
Second? Second. Motion is second to approve item 16. Cast your votes.
Thank you very much.
Item 17 is SP 490, application by Smithcore Investments to operate a commercial blood center.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Also with me is Mr. Klisch and Mulry, and Mr. Klisch is going to walk you through their company, what they do, what benefits local communities see when they go into a facility such as this. But what we have is a special permit application. So what that means is we're actually Zone C3, so this is a use contemplated under the C3 zoning, but it does require a review for a special permit. What you'll find in your staff report is a detailed program description that was included. More details will be provided through the PowerPoint presentation that you should have a copy of in front of you. One of the standards that you are tasked with looking at anytime you have a special permit is whether or not the proposed use shall adversely affect the use of neighboring properties. What you found in your staff report packet was a support letter from the developer of this property. This is a strip center that has sat vacant in large part for a long time. And so this gentleman was certainly excited to bring another user in. There's been some other development in here, and it's the belief of all that all the users will be there in harmony. But with that, I'm going to have Mr. Klisch explain who they are and what they provide, if there are no questions of me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Kerry Klisch. I'm the Director of Facilities for Octapharma Plasma. 10644 Westlake Drive, Charlotte is where I reside. That's my company's address. Going through our PowerPoint real quick on our company. That was definitely not the way I wanted to go. There we go. Apologize for that. So we are a U.S.-based company. We collect blood plasma and manufacture life-saving medicines. We operate 74-plus plasma centers across the U.S., currently in 24 states, and we're expanding at the rate of about 9 new centers a year. Again, headquartered in Charlotte. We're dedicated to improving the health and lives of donors, employees, patients, and citizens in the communities where we work and live. We're highly regulated by FDA, OSHA, EPA, and actually even the European Union, because our blood plasma goes to our parent company in Europe to make these medicines. We're typically in upgraded retail shopping centers, so strip malls is a majority of our centers. That's where we're located. We provide a safe, clean, comfortable facility for our donors to donate plasma using state-of-the-art technology to collect that blood plasma. And again, we're operated by a professionally trained staff, and you can see just some quick photos of a typical plasma center, which all our plasma centers are pretty much look like this. Again, some quick snapshots. So that bottom right photo is what blood plasma looks like after it is, we get it from the donor. It almost looks like dirty dishwater is really the way I would describe it. So how do we positively impact the communities where we are? Well, for new job creation, plasma donation center, we will be paying out approximately $2 million a year in local wages to our employees. Donor payments, we pay our donors for their time. And we run about $3.5 million a year in donor fees that we pay to our donors. So it's $5 million plus that's funneled back into the community. Retail support, so our statistics, when I say statistics, we pay our donors in a Visa check card, Visa card. When they donate, their card gets charged, so we know where they're spending their money. And it shows that 80 to 85% of that money is falling right back into the local community. They're spending on groceries and gas and whatnot right there in the local community. And we partner with local professional associations, advocacy groups, volunteer organizations. We get involved with the local community when we open a plasma center. So new job creation, again, we hire locally. About 50 jobs is what we would end up at when it's all said and done with this new plasma center. We provide the skills training and human resources support and opportunities for promotion. We even have some of our plasma centers that one of ours in Michigan, actually, our assistant manager started as a donor and actually worked his way up to assistant manager. And again, $2 million annually in competitive wages. In addition to center staff, job creation, there's local vendor and sales opportunities. We have to support now this suite once it's up and running. these opportunities, again, it's about $1 million a year for economic benefit there. HVAC, services, janitorial, the whole gambit of maintaining this facility. Again, donor payments, this is a city bank card that our donors each have after they become a donor, and that's charged. So they come in and donate, and before they're walking out the door, their card's already charged with their money, so they basically have their money when they walk out and go ahead and spend it in the community. Here's an example of, again, those statistics of where they're spending their money. And you can see it's grocery stores, gas convenience stores, pharmacies, utilities. We also offer co-advertising for local other companies in the area, whether it's in a strip mall or whatever. I know we have a fitness center right next door to where we're proposing to build this, so we would afford them the opportunity to advertise in our center, which, again, as the donors are leaving the door, they have this money in their pocket, and that would be fresh in their mind, any advertisement opportunities for the local businesses. And we partner with, we become local chamber of commerce. We get involved with associations. We support many healthcare and patient advocacy groups. Our staff gets involved with the communities through many agencies and volunteer opportunities, food drives, all that type of thing. So profile of a donor, about 18 to 45 years of age. They are employed or part-time students and job seekers on the lower income range, $30,000 to $40,000 a year. The primary motivation is to earn supplemental income and then help others. So a lot of our donors, they're getting this money, they're going to help pay utility bills, a cell phone bill, put some groceries, or maybe buy books. We have students many donors that are students, they get that extra money to buy books for their schooling. Donor eligibility criteria, they have to have the valid photo ID, proof of social security number, proof of residence, and be in good health. Medical history, health and drug screening is required to donate, and a permanent deferral if plasma is unsuitable, National Registry. Now, I'll explain that real quick. Deferral means you cannot donate plasma. It's a permanent deferral. If somebody comes to donate, we take samples of that blood plasma, we test it. So if they positive for HIV, if they're positive for hepatitis or something along that lines, we cannot use their blood plasma to make medicines, and they're permanently deferred in the National Registry. And that National Registry is us and CSL, Biomat, all the other plasma centers in the country. They're in that database. It's just a way to keep the purity of that plasma and the medicines that we make. So the donation process, so the donor's going to come in, they're going to be greeted at the front desk, and again, the new donor is going to show that ID and the Social Security, proof of residence, and whatnot. They're going to show, we're going to show them a video that explains the process. They'll go through that to get their free health screening, fill out the medical questionnaire to assure safety. And now this is when the unsuitable donors at that time, if some reason they get deferred, and it could be a temporary deferment, similar to when you go give blood. If your iron level's too low, the Red Cross says, come back next month and try to get your iron level up. Similar to that, if there's something there, we will defer them, say, okay, you need to do this, and come back. So qualified donors will now donate, which takes approximately 45 minutes. Different people donate quicker than others. It just depends on their body. After we get that, it's about 1 liter of plasma. Now we take samples of that, which goes off to a laboratory. The liter of plasma goes into the freezers. We have to wait for the samples to come back saying, yes, this is a good liter of plasma. Go ahead and use it, and then we can ship it. Well, let me back up. For a new donor, they have to come back twice. Once they come back twice, now they're a regular donor. Then we send it out. And then the donor, again, they're compensated for the time. So after they've donated their plasma, they're on the way out the door. They charged their card, and they have money in their pocket. A donor can return after 48 hours. So unlike giving blood, where you can only once a month, you could donate plasma every 2 days. With the max of twice a week, which is it's kind of interesting. So blood plasma, it's the liquid part of your body. liquid part of your blood, rather, that carries the red blood cells and the white blood cells and platelets throughout your body. And we're just collecting that water, basically, is what it is. So your body regenerates that rather quickly. There's just some examples of donors, and again, they're all over whether it's a student making money for books, maybe this is a mother, Sherry, who one of the medicines we make is for pregnant women, RH factor, when the baby's blood type is different from the mother's and it's dangerous for them. So we make that medicine there, and also Michael, who is donating plasma to, again, supplement income. And again, some real donor quotes on why they donate plasma. And it's a combination of getting that extra income, and some people do it just because to help out, to help save lives. We make medicines for trying to find my stat here. I don't have an exact number. We make medicines for RH factor, trauma victims, so organ transplant, hemophilias. We actually make a rabies vaccine. Anything you can think of that does with the human blood, we make medicines for it. And it's sent out to over 100 countries worldwide. When we build our centers, we spend, we do not scrimp. We spend, it's going to be about $1.5 million, $1.5 million just in the construction costs. We basically gut the suite and build it high-end. It's all no scrimping there. It is, we are a 10-year lease right up front with 2 5-year options. We want to be here long-term. We're not in and out. We're spending, again, $1.5 million just on construction costs. All said and done, we'll be about $2.5 million into it once we open the doors and we get involved with our community. We want to be here long-term. We're excited to come to Oklahoma.
Commissioners, any questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Very informative. Though I will say, when I donated blood, I didn't buy books back in college.
Care to share what you did use your money for?
I just had one. I just had one question, really, and that was really, what type of training are your employees receiving with the disposal of waste, and particularly?
We hire an outside company for our waste disposal. We use all. We don't reuse any of the needles or the tubes or anything like that. It's all disposable, and we're highly regulated by EPA and EU and everybody. And all the there's a lot of training. A lot of it is local training from our company. We do have, depending where we are, we do have doctors or maybe a nurse on staff. Whether they're the whole time we're open, it depends on local state regulations. Sometimes it's only they're on a call and they have to be there twice a week. But all our waste is strictly regulated. It goes into a containers in a room that's locked by itself, and then we have a company called Stericycle, which is a national company, and they come and pick our waste up and dispose of it in accordance with all state and local regulations.
Commissioners, nobody signed up to speak to us.
I'll move for approval.
Second. Motion and a second to approve item 17. Cast your votes.
Thank you.
Item is approved. Thank you very much.
Item 18, SPUD 960, application by Ernest Turnage to rezone 10501 South Harvey Avenue.
Hi, my name's Rocky Turnage. I'm here for my dad, Ernest. He would like to ask your permission to rezone this from agriculture to a SPUD so that we could build a couple of office buildings. I believe there have been some concerns about from some of the homeowners about what we would build there. They don't want a flat roof building and such as that. And we're wanting to build an office building that's a couple of them right there that are nice and look more like houses and what's more modern than just a flat roof building or storefronts with up and downs. That's not what we have in mind. We have in mind maybe being a dentist office or something like that. And also, we have a construction company, Turnage Construction Incorporated. We'd like to build an office for ourselves there, not something that would house trailers or anything like that, but just have the offices there. So that's what we have in mind. I'd ask your approval and answer any questions.
We got some people signed up, but so if I could, you're going to build residential style.
Correct.
Office building, so with hip and gable roofs.
That's correct.
That type, two of those, because I don't think the application was quite clear on that point, but maybe it was and I overlooked it, because I know that was a concern, so. I didn't have anything else. Any other questions for Mr. Turnage? We do have some folks to speak. Okay. Why don't we hear from, first, Mr. Gross, Lee Gross. Mr. Gross?
Gentlemen, thank you.
How about
I'm
your
Lee
address?
Gross. I live at 10,500 South Harvey. That's directly east of the Spud 960 in reference.
Okay.
And my questions were that I had sent a letter of request to that Mr. Turnage build a one-story structure, brick, with a hip roof, like the houses we have on our street, that blends in with the neighborhood across the street and on my street, and no access of any kind on South Harvey with a 6-foot stockade fence. And as Rocky said, if there will be no trailers on the property, that would be acceptable to me. We have a nice street, a nice neighborhood. We all have the best of country living in the middle of the city, and we like that. I think Mr. Turnage Sr. can build a nice home, nice offices. He built and framed mine about 13 years ago, and I believe he would do a good job. And that's the only concerns I had, was those to make sure it's part of the Spud, a one-story brick building or buildings, 6-foot stockade fence with no access or gates on South Harvey, and meet the landscape requirements for the city.
Right.
Thank you.
Just with regard to that, I note that we are planning on site-proof screening, so that would be a 6 to 8-foot stockade fence on the south property line, and then again on the Harvey side, correct? And then the only access point in the map that's in our staff report, just so you know, to cover off your concerns, does show one single access onto 104th.
Yes, sir.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so are we screening on the west side too?
No, sir, just there's a church there.
Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. All right. So that, I think, was some of your concerns.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gross, and of course, they will be required to follow the city landscape requirements as they do their
I'm a tree lover,
development.
so
Okay.
I like trees.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Long, would you come up, please, sir? Would you give us your name and address?
My name is Barton Long. I live at 10600 South Harvey, which is directly south of Lee's house. And I wanted to address the concerns that I had with the development there. Is my understanding of the zoning, the O2 zoning, is to create a buffer between higher commercially developed properties and residential properties. There are no higher commercial properties there that we need to be buffered in. This parcel is completely surrounded by either residential or AA agricultural, low intensity residential areas. I understand that the concerns, I think an O2 zoning, which they're asking for a modified O2 zoning, is not restrictive enough. I would maybe be in agreement to an O1, which the buildings are a little bit more restrictive on what they can be, or at least something that is more defined as exactly what is going to be put on premises, other than just a plot plan and some notes. Other than that, that is my concerns. I don't feel that it's an area that should be developed commercially, but that's my feelings. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Long, Commissioners? I would say...
Mr. Long, is your house shown, is your residence shown here?
Mine is the two double A's right there that are attached to that property. That's my house.
Okay, thank you.
You're aware that it's now a SPUD. It's not a...
Yes, but it's a SPUD. It's a O2 variance is what they're asking for, and O2 is not as restrictive as O1.
I would say that there's only one use unit in the SPUD, and that is the administrative and professional office. So that's just a single use. There are more uses that are available to them in O2, so it is a very limited use.
I mean, O2 could be residential, or could be, like I said, administrative, but it could also be a construction office.
No outdoor, I can't have any outdoor storage in O2.
Can't have what?
No outdoor storage in O2. It's prohibited.
I believe that Mr. Turner's intent is O1 would not jeopardize what he's trying to do, and it would add some oversight and some restriction to the development of that property, more in relation to the residential property that surrounds it.
Okay.
Let's ask staff about that, JJ. What if the underlying zoning were O1 instead of O2, what difference would it make with respect to this specific application?
I can't think of any difference that it would make, given the restrictions that are currently in the PUD.
Okay.
One use, building height that's set.
Stockade been provided for. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
You may have already covered this, but I just wanted to reiterate, we would like to prefer a hip roof and a steep roof to blend in with the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, I think we should be clear, though, that I don't know that we provide specifically for a residential style building. I don't see where that's in the application, but I think we should make sure we mention that. I don't think Mr. Turnage has any objections to that. Is that correct? All right.
Specifically with respect to the roof, that it is a hip roof. I mean, there are residential style buildings with flat roofs, but...
Right. But hip or gable, I mean, I don't think... Or you want to build a hip, or do you want to have...
Well, it'll be a hip roof with gables in the front.
Gables on the front.
It'll look like more like a residence than anything, so
yeah,
that's what we have in mind. We don't want to do
won't be a flat roof.
Won't be a flat roof, won't be a frontage roof with awnings or anything like that.
And we can find a way to write that into the PUD, SPUD, can't we?
Okay. Action, Commissioners. There's no TEs, and I think that the concerns of the persons have been addressed.
Move for adoption.
Gary?
I move for adoption, including residential style roofing.
Okay. Okay.
Second the motion.
All right, thank you all. Motion and a second to approve item number 18. Cast your votes. That item is approved. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate y'all coming out.
Item 19, PUD 1599, application by Glenn Foster to rezone 15101 North County Line Road.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, who's also with me, Anthony Mirzai, as well as the civil engineer, Kendall Dillon. This is a mixed-use PUD at the corner of 150th. All right. And County Line. It's a PUD, if you look through your staff report, that we have significantly pared down the uses, as well as the signage, Mr. Bright. We do limit it to 8-foot ground monument signs. We do agree with the TEs, except for number 5. I'd like to address what it's asking for is that we reserve space for both vehicular and pedestrian interconnection. we absolutely have space marked for pedestrian connection. We have two common areas that you'll see on the plat, and we have two different spots for pedestrians. It strikes me as a bit of a conflict to have both pedestrians and vehicular access. One of the goals of the comprehensive plan is to promote walkability. I think that's something this city has been talking about for far too long, and it seems to me that if we promote both, people are going to take their car and drive there. I think it's more beneficial to the neighborhood to have a nice pedestrian walkway that would allow for bicycles and people walking, rather than inviting a point of conflict between pedestrians and cars. So we're fine with TE5, except we would ask that we remove vehicular and keep it at pedestrian to, again, encourage the walkability.
I want to comment on what you, on the pedestrian access at TE number 5. Until you pointed out a little tiny slot, I just discovered on my map there's a little tiny slot on the west side right there, little bitty thing. I didn't find one anywhere else.
There's two. There's one north.
It's not on my map.
Well, this is the plat that'll come next. It's the next item.
But now, shifting that to little tiny trails, the purpose of pedestrian access to a commercial area, as we've studied in study sessions, and the planning department and their people of wisdom talk about how a plat should be set out in connection with a commercial node. This doesn't fit anything, and that's what concerns me. It should be, you should have much better access for this entire area. You know, you've got 1 billion lots, and then you have two little trails, tiny little trails that are to accommodate how many, what are you doing?
Well, perhaps we can get somebody from...
It's a huge development.
Sure.
And it just kind of has two little tiny trails. It doesn't work, in my opinion. I think what the staff says, and based upon what they know, the site plan and PUD document shall be revised to provide for vehicular and pedestrian interconnection between the commercial development and the proposed single-family development.
What?
There's no vehicles.
Correct. And again,
and so that's why I agree with the staff. I think that's the way this should be. You've got. I used to use the word goat pasture, but I won't ever use it again. You've got agricultural land out there, and you've got a flat piece of property that you can do. You can draw as many things as you want to, but it doesn't fit in with what the comprehensive plan and the planning department wants in a new subdivision development. And this doesn't get there.
Well, I'd like someone from planning to come and explain how big they think they need. We're not debating the connectivity, but if one of the goals of this city is to be walkable and not everybody get in their car to drive, 100 feet, well, it makes sense to me that we try to promote walkability, not getting in your car. And so while it looks small, you have to realize you're looking at 200 acres on a poster court.
Yep.
How wide would you think it would need to be?
I have no idea.
Well, it's over 20 feet wide, so it's a good size walkthrough. But I'd like planning, and I see Ms. Welch outside.
I have to say I agree with that. I mean, we're talking about 628 residential lots here, and the advantage of being able to access the commercial area vehicularly without going out onto County Line Road or 150th Street is definitely a goal. It's not an either-or thing. People need to be able to have pedestrian access as well, but I think it also is a good idea to permit them to take vehicular access without going out onto County Line or 150th. So
I do want to hear from staff as to because they recommend approval because it's in conformance with the plan. So I do want to hear from Ms. Welch, the width that she thinks is necessary, because I think we've already got it, but I'm not the expert.
While she's on her way, I would just say this, is that a house that's way up here in the north, they're going to have to walk down here to get to the commercial. Whether it's a 20-foot path or a 30-foot path, I mean, one. Two is, I don't agree necessarily that we want vehicular traffic going through here, simply due to the fact that it encourages cut-throughs, avoiding the intersections and the signal lights at 104th and County Line Road in both circumstances. So you develop a potential cut-through to get up there, you develop a cut-through that's going to come out very short of the intersection, which I would do if I were driving it. And so you're going to have this street down here, unnamed street, where they're going to cut right out that way. And then up here, if you got one in the north, they're going to come in the north and go right up that way to avoid signalization, which I got a problem with, frankly. I'm all for the pedestrian. I'm inclined to personally agree with Mr. Box about the pedestrian access. I'm less inclined to agree with the vehicular, given where the commercial is located in this particular plat, and given the fact that it does, I think, causes more traffic concerns than otherwise.
So you're okay with the walking? You're not okay with
Absolutely.
You think
Now, I think, to that point, though, about how you get there, I think it would be more beneficial if there was an additional pedestrian access on the north end.
There is one.
There is one.
I couldn't see one. Well, again, it doesn't show up in our map.
It looks like a skinny little lot.
Okay. All right, I see it now.
There's
The
one
little
north
triangle.
and west.
Okay, I see it now. Thanks. Just
And
to be
like I
clear.
said, at minimum, it's 20 feet.
Well,
It's a nice, wide.
sidewalk. I've said my piece. Sarah, would you please?
Sarah Welch, Planning Department. Thanks, David. The comprehensive plan calls for connections like this, but it doesn't have a specific width. If we were to build a trail, the standard is 10 to 12 feet. Like if the city were to build a trail.
Vehicular?
No, we're talking about pedestrian, right?
Right. Okay, that's fine.
Mhm.
Now, with respect to Commissioner Bright's and the way the TE says, it says revised to provide for vehicular and pedestrian interconnection. I've expressed my opinion on pedestrian. I don't have an opinion on, I don't think vehicular is appropriate, but that's just
I think
me.
we're satisfied with the pedestrian connections. Not only will you have the two that they have from the interior to the neighborhood, but you'll also have arterial sidewalks that would allow someone to walk out on County Line Road or 150th and reach the commercial area as well.
So the question is, what about vehicular access? Is that something that we favor or don't favor?
The other thing it does is it
Comp plan
creates a
would support
safety
vehicular
problem with having a public street.
Excuse me, I'm not asking you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know where the question was directed.
Comp plan would support vehicular access for just the reasons that you pointed out. If I live in the neighborhood and I happen to want to drive to the commercial area, my only option is to go out on the arterial to reach the commercial.
Okay, now,
What you invite is security concerns with the commercial. Also, you start reducing your landscape buffer because you're having to create a public a width for a public street. And so what becomes a nice, friendly pedestrian corridor into the commercial development becomes a wide thoroughfare, thereby reducing the landscaping and reducing the buffering. And what you create is a back-of-house scenario where cars potentially could create some sort of damage, perhaps steal something, and have a quick, easy getaway through the neighborhood.
come on, quick, easy neighborhood getaway through this.
Well, sure. It's our belief, and I think JJ confirmed it, that staff supports the pedestrian. I mean, I don't know.
Both.
What's
They
that?
want- They support both. They want both vehicular
Sure.
and...
That's not
But
what
we
JJ said.
think there are valid reasons why the vehicular doesn't make sense here.
But not any different for this piece of property than any other piece of property that is on a corner and surrounded by
Sure.
residential.
But this isn't a request
So
that's
you're talking
uncommon.
about something that's just contrary to our policy, And your
No.
argument is that our policy is just wrong for all these reasons.
Kendall and I have been involved in several that we limited it to pedestrian. I mean, it's not that this is the way it happens across the board and we're trying to depart from what normally happens.
But you were trying to depart from what we normally prefer and recommend, as I understand it.
Well, we don't have anywhere near that kind of width in any sidewalks we've built recently.
I'm sorry?
We don't have the kind of width they're talking about, 20 feet in the sidewalks we've built recently. The city has.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh. And obviously staff can set me straight on this, but having done several of them, this is the first one I can actually recall, even since the new comp plan, that specifically said pedestrian and vehicular access. I'm sure there's other ones, but it's somewhat of a new thing for us on the development side. As far as the logic of why we're standing up here and trying to be somewhat adamant about it, is those simple, because we have some honest concerns that, number one, that traffic will cut through the neighborhood, which has an impact on the residential component of it. Even with the commercial development, you always have to have a back door somewhere. Typically, it's in the back so that you have the dumpsters, you have access to the back of these retail facilities in the back. It does make it easier when there's vehicular access to the back of those retail centers and retail shops for there to be more vandalism and those sort of things. In conjunction with that as well, when you're trying to buffer the residential from the commercial, obviously, we've got written into the PUD certain things, but it does become, not only because it's a regulation that you all want, but it becomes important to us as well because we're marketing the lots around it. So it is considerably easier to buffer the commercial from the residential, even with a pedestrian walkway, because if you have a pedestrian gate, it still can be impervious and you can't see through it. But there's not a way to gate it or to put a vehicular access from the residential into the commercial and to screen it. So you're looking, and then you're looking through a corridor that you're really looking at the back of the buildings where you have alleyways behind it, loading zones and those sort of things with dumpsters. And so that's the reason that we are asking that we provide the pedestrian, which has been, my experience has been what we've agreed to in most all situations and cases, and we just eliminate the vehicular. That's the reason that we're fairly adamant about it.
If I could, just a sec, David. Additionally, for me, if you're going to have a street, you need a sidewalk
Well, I think you've got room for both.
along there. One. Secondly, I don't know this to be the case, but back access also, to me, encourages commercial vehicles to access the commercial strip through the neighborhood.
Correct. And Ms. Powers, if you consider
potentially
Class and Curve, what was very important to your ward and those neighbors there? They wanted access to Class and Curve. They didn't want vehicular access. Rob Littlefield spent considerable time in front of this commission, city council, to make sure that the neighborhood had pedestrian access to Class and Curve, which they accomplished, not vehicular, so that you wouldn't have exactly what Mike has mentioned, where you would have people driving and cutting through the neighborhood. And that neighborhood next to Class and Curve has flourished in part because of Class and Curve and because they have that wonderful pedestrian access without the vehicular access. That was a major sticking point, one that frankly, I think everybody would agree, those two developments have worked extremely well side by side, in part because it was limited to pedestrian and not vehicular access.
To acknowledge that that's accurate. But I think that if this is a point that we are accepting, then we need to change our policy. There's nothing different about this one than there is about commercial development everywhere. We have always recommended that there be vehicular access to these commercial areas that are surrounded by residential. And if we're not in favor of that anymore, then I think we should change our policy.
We can visit that another day. We got an application in front of us that we need to vote on.
I've got a couple of questions. On the access to 150th, the first access to the west of County Line Road, and the first access to the north of 150th on County Line Road looks like right turn only. Is that correct?
No.
Why are they drawn that way then?
Well, what you're seeing is a boulevard entrance. It's not right out. It's actually just a boulevard entrance where you could have a nice landscape center median.
I just telling you, our map shows kind of a not at right angle.
Yeah, well,
turn into the neighborhood, so it looks a little funky. I agree with Jimmy's point. It does look like it. Yeah, well,
I'm not sure what you're
Talking
looking
about the
at.
streets coming into the neighborhood.
Yeah, the street's coming into the
connections.
neighborhood. I see him now, Jimmy. If you look at this one, it looks a little different.
It does look different on there.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's the plat. That's not in this PUD.
Yeah.
That's on a different. That's on the next application.
Okay, well, it just looked like it was right turn only, and I couldn't quite figure that out, so.
Okay, Commissioners, any other questions or comments? We need a motion.
I move approval.
Motion is second to approve item 19, amending TE, is that amending TE5 or not?
Amending it.
Amending TE5 to provide for
Only for pedestrian traffic.
pedestrian interconnection. Cast your votes.
Thank you.
You're approved.
Item 20, C6756, the associated preliminary plat of Northwood Place.
Again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. This is the preliminary plat. There are a series of TEs. We agree with all of them. We'd ask for your approval.
Commissioners, nobody signed up.
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
Second.
Motion is second to approve item 20. Cast your votes.
Thank you.
That item is approved.
Item 22, SPUD 55, application by Sam Gresham to rezone 1901, 1905 Northwest 27th Street.
What is this, Sam?
Oh, you didn't get one?
State your name and address, sir.
Sam Gresham, 400 Northwest 23rd, here to represent the owner. Our application is for 4 duplexes on a property adjacent to OCU campus. Commissioner Powers asked me, and the exhibits I presented to you represent a landscape plan. Oh, that's the wrong elevation. I'm sorry. My apologies. The renderings in the handouts I just left for you, that represents the exteriors that are proposed on the property. You got them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, the owner said something about, he sketched something out and it looked terrible. I think one of my workers did it. I hated it, so I'm glad it's not something he wanted. There are 8 two-bedroom, 2-bath duplex units on a site with off-street parking that meets current parking regulations. We have added landscaping to screen that parking. Our request is that we, on the south property line, that we have a zero setback we're right on the property line with the building. The right-of-way on 27th Street, Northwest 27th Street, is 90 feet. There's an ordinance in the city that requires us to put our trees within 20 feet of the curb, so we have to apply for revocable in order to get trees, because they've got to be out in the right-of-way. But that means that from the curb to the fence line, we've got 32 and a half feet of grass before we get to our property line. So for that, we ask that that no setback in this PUD on the 27th Street frontage. We have a 5-foot essentially side yard setback and a 10-foot rear yard setback with respect to the north and the west sides of this property. We're actually 10 feet off of the property line on the Kentucky Street frontage on that side. Although it says 0, this is the proposed project. This is the proposed plan. We do agree with all the technical evaluations that are in the staff report. I'll answer any questions that you have.
I hate to do this right at this meeting, but, and you and I have talked about this before, and I thought I had made up my mind about it. It's suddenly looking at, in particular, this picture of a car parked right at the front.
Yes.
Would it be possible to put the parking behind the units?
We went through that exercise, I did, and tried to make it happen. My problem was that the way the width of that parking had to be, I have a head-end parking space of 18 feet with 24 feet of maneuvering space. Then I have another 8 feet, which is a parallel parking space. I can't get that to work in the back. I can, if the idea was to reduce the number of required parking, I have two parks per unit. I have 17 parking spaces on the site, and they're tight. And it's a one-way drive, given that we've got those parallel parking spaces on the side. I have to have a directional parking, one way in, one way out.
Oh, that's right.
But I made the effort to put it behind. It just wouldn't fit. I mean, there were very few parking spaces that were going to fit behind the building. We were trying to accommodate all off-street parking for all the residents. So it's...
And I agree with that, and we have talked about this back and forth quite a bit. The street right-of-way here is just extraordinary, and so even with all this, and with the landscaping plan that they show, they're going to have to go get revocable permit just for their landscaping. So I think we've probably jiggered with this about as much as we can, and I think this is probably the best plan for the property. So is there anybody signed up to speak? If none of the other commissioners have any comments they'd like to offer, I'll move for approval.
Second. Motion is second to approve item 22. Cast your votes. That item is approved.
Thank you very much.
I think that concludes the public hearings. All right, any additional items for the commission? Communications and reports, Planning Commission committees, Planning Commission members.
Do we want to talk about permeable parking again?
Well, I thought you'd take this opportunity to say we'd like to talk more about permeable parking in the future.
Yeah, we would. I'd like to get together, put together maybe a little working group of infill developers especially seem to be interested in it, architects, engineers, whatever. I know there are some places in the city that are, utilizing it, some more successfully than others. I've been told different types of it work better in certain applications or situations than others. And I think, rather than wait for the entire reboot of the development regs, I'd like to, get something started on this. We approved one, down near the plaza last week, and that just makes me so uncomfortable to be looking at those on a, yes, no, one at a time basis. I'd like to have something that we can look at and say, if you're going to do one of these 2 or 3 things, it works for us. So, there you go. I think I'm gonna move forward with that unless somebody tells me not to.
I wouldn't do that, Janice. Tell you to not to. Planning Department, Development Services, Municipal Council. Did y'all come to speak to us on a particular item or just to watch city government at its best? Thank you very much.
They're waiting on something from me.
Glad to hear that. Okay, that was under the next heading of citizens to be heard. All right, good to know. Other business, commissioners. Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.